The river roared like a beast unchained, dragging Clara Winthrop into its icy jaws as her carriage shattered against the rocks of the Montana wilderness. Alone, battered, and far from her Boston home, she clung to a slick boulder, her screams lost in the current, unaware that a pair of dark eyes watched from the shadows, a lone Apache hunter, bow drawn, deciding her fate. Wolves circled closer, their growls echoing her pounding heart, and in that fleeting moment, Clara didn't know if the stranger's arrow would save her life or end it. If you're gripped by this tale of survival and unlikely bonds, smash that like button, subscribe for more stories that pull you into the heart of the frontier, and drop a comment below to share where you're watching from, be it the Rockies, the Great Plains, or a bustling city far from the wild. Your support fuels these stories, so let's follow Clara's journey together. Clara Winthrop, the only daughter of a stern Boston judge, had been traveling west in a cushioned carriage, her trunks scented with lavender and packed with the trappings of a life she hadn't chosen. Promised to Edward Hargrove, a Montana rancher whose wealth was matched only by his ambition, she was bound for a marriage meant to cement her father's influence. The caravan had trudged through valleys and over rugged passes, a slow march toward a future written by others. That morning, everything broke apart. A pack of wolves surged from the hills, their eyes flashing like steel in the dawn. The caravan was crossing a shallow river when the lead wolf lunged, spooking the horses. The lead mare reared, the axle snapped, and Clara's carriage flipped into the churning water. She hit a rock, pain searing her side, as the current swept away silks, books, and the driver's still form. Gasping, she clawed at a fallen branch, her sodden skirts pulling her under. With trembling hands, she dragged herself onto a muddy bank, coughing, shivering, but alive. The forest fell silent, then growled. The wolves hadn't fled. Their shadows stalked through the underbrush, closing in. Clara staggered upright, her torn dress clinging to her skin, and ran. Branches scratched her arms, roots snagged her feet. Her breath came in sharp gasps, her heart thundering as the growls grew nearer. She tripped, falling to her knees, her strength gone, certain the end had come. A sharp whistle pierced the air. An arrow thudded into the earth inches from the lead wolf's paws. Another whistle, another arrow. The pack froze, sniffed the wind, and bolted into the trees. Clara's chest heaved, her vision swimming. She looked up to see a man step from the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes as dark and steady as the forest itself. His bow was still raised, his movements calm, deliberate. His face was weathered, his hair tied back with a leather cord. He was no settler, no soldier. He was something else. "Don't hurt me," Clara whispered, scrambling back in the mud. The man knelt, his gaze unwavering. "You're hurt," he said, his voice low, accented in a way that felt foreign yet clear. "Can you walk?" She nodded, though her legs wobbled. "Who are you?" "Tawny," he replied, offering nothing more. He draped a rough wool blanket over her shoulders. When her knees buckled, he lifted her with ease, carrying her through the dense woods to a small cabin perched on a forested ridge. It was simple, logs and packed earth, no windows, just a single door. Inside, a fire flickered, casting shadows across the walls. Tawny set her near the hearth, placing a clay cup of water in her hands and a clean cloth on her brow. Clara, barely conscious, murmured his name again. "Tawny." He didn't respond, only sat nearby, silent and watchful, as the fire crackled and rain washed away the traces of the day's chaos. Clara closed her eyes, unsure if this stranger was her savior or something else entirely. Morning light slipped through the cabin's roof slats, painting the interior in soft gold. Clara stirred, her body aching, her throat dry. The fall lingered in her hips, a dull throb, but she was alive. The cabin was sparse. Log ceiling, dirt floor covered with thick blankets, a wooden bench, and a fire pit. An empty bowl sat beside her, and across the room, Tawny tended the fire, his back to her, stirring embers with a stick. His presence was quiet, solid, like the ridge itself. Clara sat up, wincing. Tawny glanced over, his movements slow. No fast, he said, pointing to her side. Pain. She studied him, still wary. His accent was thick, each word deliberate, as if English were a river he navigated carefully. Where am I? Mountain. Safe place. He rose, fluid and unhurried, unlike the stiff men of Boston. He handed her a steaming bowl, its contents smelling of roots and herbs. Drink. Warm. Clara's hands shook as she took it. The liquid was bitter, earthy, but it warmed her chest. What is this? He crouched by the fire, eyes flicking to her briefly. Not poison. She let out a small, surprised laugh. Thanks, I guess. Rest today. Walk tomorrow. He returned to the fire, his silence not cold but patient, as if he were used to waiting for answers the world didn't give. Clara sipped the broth, watching him. Tawny, she said, testing the name. That's you. He nodded. Means hawk. You speak English. Soldiers taught. His tone was flat, but his eyes held something deeper, a story he didn't share. Were you with them? She pressed. He stood, moving to a corner where dried meat hung in strip. He didn't answer. Clara understood. His silence wasn't evasion, it was choice. She lowered her gaze, not wanting to push too far. The day passed slowly. Clara tried to stand, but Tawny stopped her, wrapping her ankle with leaves and a cloth. He offered water, a piece of hard bread. She ate quietly, studying him. He wasn't young like the suitors back home, nor old. His shoulders were broad, his hands strong, his face carved by sun and wind. His eyes held something primal, not anger, not kindness, but something older, like the land itself. By afternoon, Tawny left without a word, leaving a blanket over her legs. Fear crept in, but he'd left no locks, no threats. When he returned with firewood and a brace of fish, Clara helped tend the fire. They didn't speak much, but gestures filled the gaps, pointing, nodding, a shared rhythm forming. At dusk, she asked, Do you have family? Tawny stared into the flames. Far away. She didn't press further. That night, he slept by the door, wrapped in his own blanket, never too close, always watchful. Clara drifted off to the sound of the fire and the steady cadence of his breathing, and for the first time since the river, fear didn't steal her sleep. Days blurred in the mountains, unmarked by calendars. Clara measured time by the fire's smoke, the lengthening shadows, the cooling air as summer faded. She stopped counting days, 3, 5, 7, and found she didn't care. Tawny spoke little, but his silence was a space, not a wall. Each morning, he brought food, checked her wounds, then left to hunt or gather wood, returning at dusk. Clara began to move in the cabin, washing her bowl, folding blankets, gathering dried herbs. She was learning the space, and him. One afternoon, as Tawny sharpened a knife on a whetstone, Clara sat across from him, cautious but curious. She pointed to a dried plant hanging from a beam. What's that? He glanced up. Sagebrush. For cough. She nodded, repeating the word softly. Then another plant. And this. White sage. He paused. You ask much. You answer little, she countered, a faint smile breaking through. He tilted his head, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Ask better. Fine. What's your name mean, Hawk? He paused, knife still. When I was young, I fell in a crevice. No one could find me. A hawk circled above until my father came. He said it watched me. Clara didn't know how to respond. The story was simple, yet it carried a weight she couldn't name. She nodded, taking a piece of bread he offered. Thank you, she said, her voice softer now. Tawny looked away, but his lips twitched, almost a smile. That day, Clara stepped outside alone for the first time, leaning on a stick he'd carved. The forest was alive, wind through pines, the scent of damp earth and resin. She felt a new language in the air, one that didn't need words. When she returned, Tawny was feeding his dogs, his movements deliberate, purposeful. How do you say thank you in your language? She asked. He looked at her. Shylika ii. She tried, stumbling over the sounds. He repeated it slowly, patiently. Better, he said when she got it right. And name? Jilichai. How do you say my name? Clara, he said, his pronunciation sharp, precise. She laughed, surprised. You say it better than I do. His lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. They were beginning to understand each other, not just through words, but through the spaces between them, the quiet respect forming like a bridge. One night, a soft rain fell, steady and gentle. Clara had gathered branches near the clearing, her clothes damp. By morning, she didn't rise. Tawny noticed the shift, a heavy silence, not restful but thick. He approached, touching her forehead. It burned. Fever, he muttered, then vanished into the woods, returning with oak leaves, willow bark, and bitter roots. He brewed an infusion, placed cool cloths on her brow, and sat beside her, unmoving as she murmured in her sleep. Her mother's name, his name, fragments of a life left behind. On the third day, her fever broke. She woke, eyes cloudy, and saw him grinding herbs by the fire. How long was I out? 3 suns. He didn't look up. She tried to sit, but he stopped her with a firm hand. Rest. Clara sank back, too weak to argue. Thank you for staying. He nodded. You said my name. In fever. She blinked, startled. Did I? Yes. And mother. And home. You cried. She looked away, not ashamed, but raw. What else? Nothing bad, he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. That evening, as she dozed, Tawny left a small gift beside her, a bone pendant carved in the shape of a hawk. He'd started it long ago, but finished it for her. Clara found it at dawn, tracing its lines with her fingers. She didn't ask if it was hers. She clutched it to her chest, a silent thank you. Days later, by the fire, she asked, What's this? Pointing to a scar on his shoulder, barely visible under his shirt. He stilled, then unbuttoned enough to show it, a jagged mark, old but deep. White soldiers. Captive. 3 moons. Why? Wrong side. His words were simple, but they carried a world of pain. Clara's throat tightened, not with pity, but with anger at a world built on such wounds. You didn't deserve it. He met her eyes. I know. So I lived. They sat in silence, the fire's glow binding them. Clara didn't return to her corner that night. She stayed near, their shoulders close, sharing warmth and something deeper, a trust that needed no proof. The forest grew quiet one morning, not with peace but with tension. Tawny felt it first, his steps slowing as he scanned the trees. Clara woke to his unease. What's wrong? Not alone, he said, crouching to touch the earth. Men. Not my people. Smell of iron and powder. Her stomach twisted. What do they want? Gold. Food. Something to take. He looked at her. If they come, you hide. Follow river down. Don't look back. She shook her head, fierce. I won't leave you. You will if you must. 3 men appeared by dusk, their clothes ragged, rifles slung across their backs. Tawny saw them first, signaling Clara to crouch behind a low hill. From her hiding spot she watched them approach, their leader shouting, Anyone there? Saw smoke. Just wanna talk. Tawny stood tall, bow in hand. Nothing for you here. One laughed, spitting the word Indian like a curse. When he stepped forward, Tawny's arrow sank into the dirt at his feet. The men froze, then retreated, their bravado crumbling. Clara emerged, trembling not with fear but with something fiercer. I thought you'd kill them. No, Tawny said. Just remind them. Not everything is theirs. That night, Clara didn't pull away. She lay beside him, her hand on his chest, her head on his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her not just for warmth, but for something more. The threat lingered like dust in the air. Tawny grew vigilant, his arrows sharper, his sleep lighter. Clara felt it too, the weight of being his weakness. They worked closer now, fortifying the cabin, teaching her to throw stones, to wield the knife with purpose. One evening, as she mended a blanket, she asked, "Have you ever been in love?" He paused, tying a rope. "Why? I don't know if I am. I want to know how it feels." He looked at her, eyes steady. "It hurts here," he touched his chest, "not from lack, but because you're not alone in it." She nodded, her voice quiet. "Then I think I am." He stilled. "Me too." Their hands brushed later, and she didn't pull away. He laced his fingers with hers, rough against soft, and they held on, no words needed. Weeks later, a rider appeared, waving a makeshift white flag. Clara refused to hide. The man, Douglas, a guide from her caravan, stared in shock. "Miss Winthrop? You're alive. Your father, he's sick, calling for you." She glanced at Tawny. "I need to see him." Douglas frowned. "He's an Indian. You can't stay." "He saved me," she said, voice firm. "I'll decide." Alone with Douglas, she learned the truth. Her father believed she'd been taken, and if she didn't return, Tawny could face arrest. "I'll go," she told Tawny, "but only to see my father. I'll come back." He didn't promise, only nodded. "I'll wait." The fort was a grim cluster of wood and dust, heavy with judgment. Her father, Judge Winthrop, lay frail, his voice a whisper. "What did that savage do?" "He saved me," Clara said, her words a blade. That night, rumors spread, she'd been corrupted, held against her will. When Tawny came to see her, soldiers seized him, locking him in a cell. The trial was a farce, quick and biased. Clara stormed in, uninvited. "He didn't kidnap me," she declared, voice shaking the room. "He found me, healed me, treated me with more respect than anyone here. You judge him for his skin, not his actions." Her words cracked the room's silence. Tawny was freed, not from justice, but because her truth was too loud to ignore. Outside, she ran to him. "If it all breaks, do I still run to the river?" "No," he said. "Run to me." They returned to the mountains, wary but together. Her father died days later, his last look one of faint understanding. Clara left the fort without farewell, meeting Tawny in the woods. A patrol stopped them, warning her of the hard life ahead. "There's no return," the officer said. "There never was," she replied. They built a new home by a river, under weeping willows. Clara's belly grew, and their son, Kai, was born under those branches. Years passed, Kai learning his father's tracks and his mother's songs. They became a haven for lost travelers, their cabin a whisper of legend, a place where a white woman and an Apache man built a love not of storybooks, but of choice. One evening, under their willow, Clara asked, "Are you happy?" Tawny squeezed her hand. "I have no other life to compare." "I do," she said. "And this is peace." Beyond the valley, where the willows sway and the river hums, a stone stands under an oak ringed by wild lilies. Locals say it marks the story of a woman who chose the wild and a man who chose her. Their son, Kai, now a man, guides the lost, teaching them to listen. Clara weaves, sings, and bakes bread. Tawny carves, watches, guards. Their love, built of mud and silence, needs no name, only each other.